Okay. Rhonda's here. Okay. Rhonda. Good afternoon. The work session of the Annapolis City Council for Friday, January 18th, 2024 will be called to order at 3:02 p.m. At this time, would everyone willing and able please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I should say that Mayor Buckley isn't here because he's at a conference in Washington, D.C., a mayor conference of some sort. So it's pretty cool. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the first item on the agenda?
Yes, ma'am. The first item on the agenda is presentations, ID 424, National Community Survey results. Presenter City Manager Malinoff and Deputy City Manager Buckland.
Okay, I'll turn it to you, City Manager Malinoff.
Yes, very briefly, Michael Malinoff, City Manager. A couple of years ago, you all budgeted to have this process through the Audit Committee. I think this is about historically the third time the city has done one of these surveys, although Polco now is the company as opposed to the National Citizen Survey. Vicki Buckland, who is the Assistant City Manager, was at the helm and is managing the project, and I'd like to turn it over to her. And I will be available, obviously, for any questions and might even throw in a comment or two. Thank you.
And I'm actually going to turn it over to Stephen Vickers, who's joined us from Polco, who was our primary point of contact in actually conducting the survey and analyzing the results. It's been a very interesting process. There's lots of details inside of this. What we're going to get today is generally speaking a broad overview, but there's actually more details under some of this. And obviously one of our questions ends up being then what comes after. So Stephen, if you want to start, we'll get going.
Can I just ask if he wants us to save questions for the end or while he's speaking?
What's your preference?
It's I have no preference, Council.
Okay, cool, thanks.
All right, perfect. Can you see the slideshow? Okay, perfect. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for having me today. My name is Stephen Vickers, and I am a survey associate at Polco. I'm really happy and excited to be here to present the summary of the findings from the Annapolis National Community Survey, or the NCS. Now, before I begin, on behalf of myself and my Polco NRC co-workers, I'd very much like to thank Victoria Buckland, our primary contact throughout the survey development and implementation process. They provided thoughtful and detailed feedback throughout the project and were instrumental to its success. So those who don't know, Polco is an online community engagement polling platform that provides the information and tools local governments and other public sectors leaders need. Hundreds of organizations nationwide use Polco for strategic planning, budgeting, and empowering resident voices. We make civil, verified community engagement online not only possible, but accessible. Since 1994, the National Research Center has worked with hundreds of local governments and other public sector organizations nationwide to provide the data they need to make more informed decisions. NRC is best known for our national benchmarking surveys, such as the National Community Survey, the National Employee Survey, and the Community Assessment Survey for older adults, among others. Our benchmark database is the largest of its kind in the United States. The National Research Center and Polco merged in 2019 to more effectively serve local government and project resident voices. We're proud partners of the International City and County Managers Association, the National League of Cities, Engaged Local Government Leaders, Alliance for Innovation, and we work very closely with the American Association for Public Opinion Research. Now, before we dig into the results, I want to emphasize that there are a variety of ways these results can be used. Most commonly, the jurisdictions we work with use their survey data to monitor trends in resident opinion over time, measure government performance and ratings of public trust, and to inform budgeting processes and strategic plans. Our results also show the benchmarks, national benchmarks, so you can benchmark your community's specific characteristics and services against those same characteristics within other communities in our database. Our hope is that as these findings are presented, it will spur ideas for you in what could be done with these results or where you might want to dig deeper. The National Community Survey, or the NCS, is a standardized 5-page comprehensive survey that allows municipalities to assess resident opinion about their community and local government. The NCS focuses on the livability of Annapolis by categorizing survey questions into 10 main facets of community livability as shown here. These facets have been identified through extensive survey research as those that are most impactful to residents' quality of life. The NCS includes items within each of these 10 facets to provide a full picture of how residents feel about their community. Finally, these facets also tend to align with municipal departments, making it easy for city staff to quickly find the information that is of most importance to them in the final report of results. The 2023 survey was conducted over 7 weeks beginning on October 12th. All households within Annapolis were eligible to participate, and 3,000 addresses were randomly selected to receive the survey. All selected households received 3 mailings. The first mailing was a postcard inviting the household to participate in the survey. The next mailing was a full survey packet that contained a cover letter with instructions, a 5-page survey questionnaire, and a postage-paid return envelope. A third mailing was a final reminder postcard. Both postcards and the cover letter included a web link to give residents the opportunity to respond to the survey online, as well as a QR code for residents to more easily access the survey on a mobile device. All follow-up mailings asked those who had not completed the survey to do so, and those who had already done so to not respond twice. The survey was available in English and Spanish. All mailings contained paragraphs in both language instructing participants on how to complete their survey in their preferred language. A total of 496 completed surveys were received from these efforts, providing a response rate of 17% and a margin of error of plus or minus 4 percentage points. Now, for some context, in the past couple years, really kind of post-COVID, we've been seeing response rates of between 10% and 20% overall for the NCS. And communities who have never surveyed before or have had significant gaps between survey efforts often run on the lower end of that. Additionally, our goal and kind of the gold standard for the margin of error is 5%. And this year's effort exceeded that goal, bringing even more confidence to each data point. So in regards to both response rate and margin of error, the city's response in 2023 was actually on the high end of what we've been seeing across the country. And we compared the demographic profile of survey respondents to that of adults in Annapolis using the most recent Census and American Community Survey data, and then weighted the survey results. Weighting is a survey research best practice and helps to improve the representativeness of your survey results. A weighting table with unweighted, weighted, and target percentages is available in the full report. Now, in addition to the randomly selected probability sample of households, a link to an online community-wide open participation survey was publicized by Annapolis. The open participation survey was open to all city residents and became available on November 9th. The survey remained open for 3 weeks and 138 responses were received. This presentation and the report are based on the 496 responses from the random sample mail-based survey. The responses to the open participation survey are provided separately in the full report. One of the advantages of a local government participating in our community.
Excuse me, we have a question. We have one question.
Absolutely.
Alderman Arnett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did you look at the profile of the 138 voluntary respondents as compared to the 496 respondents? I guess
That is-
what I'm angling at, were these people that were typical of the survey respondents, or were these people who had a particular issue, or could you tell anything about that?
Thank you very much for the question, Alderman. And I have not dug through those to compare the demographics and, looking at who answered the open participation versus who answered the random sample. This is absolutely something that we can do. We have the data, and we're happy to dig through it further to analyze and compare who was responding to each. That is absolutely within our means, but that's not something that we included in this report.
Yeah. I have a quick question, calling myself. What is confidence interval, I guess that line item, confidence interval, with a 4% margin of error? What in that context, what do those two words mean?
Absolutely. So, just to put it very simply, we are 95% confident that each and every data point in this report is within a 4% margin of error. So the 4% being any margin of error within the sample, within the data. I don't know if that clarifies it, but it's referring to each data point.
Yeah.
So we're confident that, for instance, if a data point says 91%, we're 95% confident that the score is within a 4% margin of that point.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Anything further before I continue?
And just for additional, 95% confidence level in statistical work is really common. That's a very standard confidence interval to work with.
All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. So one of the advantages to a local government of participating in our community surveys is the opportunity to compare ratings given by your residents to those from communities across the nation. NRC was the first organization to conceive of the idea to create benchmarks of public opinion, and this allows jurisdictions to compare ratings of services to ratings of similar services from other communities. There are currently about 500 communities in our database that represent the voices of more than 50 million residents. Annapolis received comparisons to the entire national benchmark database, which I'll be referring to throughout the presentation. So let's start digging into some data. Now, in the survey, we have two questions that directly ask about those 10 facets of community livability. The first asks residents to rate the quality of each, and you can see the resulting comparison to the national benchmark in the shading on the chart. The second question asks about the same facets of livability, but is centered on how important residents think it is for the community to focus on each facet in the coming 2 years. So we ask about both the quality and importance of each of these facets, and we use those answers to create the quality importance matrix here on this slide. So we use this chart, which is also included in the report, to help determine which areas are of relative higher importance and lower quality to residents. So those are found in the lower right quadrant here as pictured. I do want to stress that this chart is only one of many ways to interpret your data, and it can be used to identify key findings and to help a community determine which areas may need additional focus or research allocation in the coming years, and which other areas are performing well by comparison. Another way to look at this would be to determine the gap measure between importance and quality ratings to help determine your area of focus. Ultimately, this is meant to just help contextualize the overall quality and importance of each of these 10 facets. Now, of the 123 survey items for which residents provided evaluative ratings, 5 received ratings higher than the national benchmark. Those include Annapolis as a place to visit and the vibrancy of the downtown commercial area. 99 received similar ratings, and 19 received lower ratings. Among those are traffic flow and the ease of public parking. Ratings are considered similar if they are within 10 points of the national average, and higher or lower if they are more than 10 points different from the average. Now, moving on into some highlights from our findings, I wanted to point out a few things that stood out to us as researchers. Now, there's a lot of data in the full report that we won't be able to cover today, but I do want to highlight a few areas that we found to be most noteworthy within Annapolis's survey results. First off, Annapolis residents offer strong scores for the local economy, but they do have some concerns about the cost of living. So about 6 in 10 residents evaluated the economic health of the city as excellent or good, while more than 8 in 10 residents rated Annapolis as an excellent or good place to visit, much higher than the national average. And of course, by much higher, I am meaning 20 points above average. So that's 20 points above average for Annapolis's score as a place to visit. Now, 3/4 of survey participants offered positive reviews for the overall quality of business and service establishments, while about 7 in 10 residents were pleased with the vibrancy of the downtown commercial area, which also exceeded national benchmarks. The variety of business and service establishments in the city and Annapolis as a place to work both earned favorable reviews from 6 in 10 respondents and were on par with national benchmarks. Shopping opportunities in Annapolis garnered above average ratings from 62% of evaluators. Half of Annapolis residents positively viewed employment opportunities and economic development. The cost of living in Annapolis was the greatest economic concern of residents, with only 15% offering a positive opinion. This rating was lower than the national average and could indicate stress around rising cost. Similarly, when asked what impact the economy will have on their family income, only 20% of participants rated very or somewhat positive. So this is very typical of what we are beginning to see across the nation, which shows growing sensitivity around cost of living and broader concerns within the economy. Residents also point to residential development and affordable housing as potential areas of focus for the city. So we can see in the pie chart here that about 4 in 10 Annapolis residents gave excellent or good ratings to the overall design or layout of the city's residential and commercial areas. The preservation of the historical or cultural character of the community and the overall appearance of Annapolis garnered high marks from 3/4 of residents, while 2/3 said the same for the city's public places where people want to spend time. Annapolis residents offered assessments in line with benchmarks for the variety of housing options and well-planned commercial growth. Contrastingly, residents provided below average scores to Annapolis's well-designed neighborhoods, overall quality of new development, well-planned residential growth, and the availability of affordable quality housing. Anticipating concerns over development, the city included a unique question asking residents to indicate their level of support for various types of new development. 8 in 10 residents stated they strongly or somewhat agreed with the city developing single-family residential housing. About 3/4 of responses supported pursuing additional parking options and senior housing. 2/3 also agreed with the city advancing multifamily housing and affordable low-income housing. In another question regarding city priorities, a majority of residents indicated their support for the city to preserve or develop affordable housing, develop workforce housing, and reduce homelessness or provide permanent housing. Half of Annapolis residents supported decentralizing affordable housing in the city and moving to a mixed income model. Our third key finding is that Annapolis residents feel safe, but do indicate some concern regarding crime. Now, when asked about their feelings of safety in the city's downtown commercial areas during the day and in their neighborhood during the day, about 9 in 10 survey respondents indicated that they felt very or somewhat safe, both on par with comparison communities. About 3/4 favorably rated the feeling of safety from fire, flood, or other natural disaster. Violent crime and property crime reviews came in below national averages, with about 6 in 10 reported feeling very or somewhat safe from each. Half of residents positively rated their overall feeling of safety in Annapolis, which was below the national benchmark. In an additional safety question that was unique to this survey iteration, 83% of respondents indicated that they felt very or somewhat safe traveling by car. Walking in Annapolis earned similar marks from 65% of participants, while just about half felt safe on a bicycle. Now, in the next and final key finding, we will find out how these ratings complement additional issues surrounding mobility. However, it should be pointed out that 71% of respondents stated that they have walked or biked instead of driving to work in the last 12 months. That rating is higher than the national benchmarks and could indicate greater sensitivity around these issues. So in terms of safety services, Annapolis fared well. Fire services were given excellent or good marks by approximately 89% of residents, and 85% said the same of ambulance or emergency medical services. About 7 in 10 respondents offered positive evaluations for fire prevention and education, while 2/3 of reviewers favorably rated police and sheriff services. Now, finally, some aspects of mobility could present opportunities for the city. About 6 in 10 survey participants gave excellent or good marks to the ease of walking, which was in line with comparison communities. But contrastingly, half of respondents similarly rated the ease of travel by car, which was below the benchmark score. The ease of travel by bicycle earned below average ratings from 3 in 10 residents, while 1/4 positively rated the ease of public parking and traffic flow on major streets. The ease of travel by public transportation earned a score of 22%, but was in line with comparison communities. Again, keep in mind that 7 in 10 residents have said that they have walked or biked in the past year. So this greater than average participation could mean that residents are more honed into these issues in Annapolis than other communities, which can affect their ratings. In terms of mobility related services in Annapolis, about 6 in 10 respondents positively rated snow removal and street cleaning. Half of city residents were similarly pleased with street lighting and traffic signal timing. There is an additional space where a jurisdiction can add questions of current topical policy interest. We've seen a couple of those questions, but I'd like to show the responses from the community to the other custom questions that were asked by the city of Annapolis.
That was a
So in
gorgeous
one-
picture. Sorry, that was a really nice picture.
Isn't it?
That's gorgeous. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So in one question, residents were asked to rate city employees based on their last encounter with them. And it was really exciting to see that in every case, a strong majority rated Annapolis employees as excellent or good. So this is going to include treating all people involved in a respectful manner, responsiveness to request and needs, timeliness of handling the situation, knowledge, fairness, and resolution of concerns. The final custom question was focused on participants and various initiatives for the community to focus on. So we were asked to rate how important it was for the Annapolis community to focus on each of the following initiatives. Here we can see that a majority wants Annapolis to prepare city infrastructure for natural disasters and offer educational or logistical resources to help residents prepare for natural resources. Fewer than half have named other choices as essential or very important. So with this slide, I want to emphasize that these scores only represent those who indicated ratings of essential or very important. The full spectrum of responses is available in the full report and may warrant additional digging into. In summary, Annapolis residents love the economy, but they have some concerns about cost of living. They're sharing these concerns with much of the country. Residents point to residential development and affordable housing as potential areas of focus for the city. Annapolis residents do feel safe, but do indicate some concern regarding violent and property crime. And then finally, residents are pointing out that some aspects of mobility could represent opportunities for the city. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to give anyone a pop quiz today, but I do want to pose these questions, to council to ponder as you continue to dive through these results. What did you expect residents would say? Was there anything you found surprising in the results? Is there anywhere you want to dig deeper, need to dig deeper? And in what areas should you focus efforts moving forward? Now, as y'all go on to do the great work that you do, how can these results help inform the decisions that you make? Now, if you wish to dig deeper to find out more about the opinions and perceptions of residents, luckily you can do that here with Polco. Annapolis currently has 220 panel participants that registered during the survey effort. So that's 220 community members who, in this first survey effort, stated they wanted to engage with the city on important issues. The city can continue to ask questions and start dialogue with these community members in the months and years to come. You can use your online community panel to ask follow-up questions to the survey, create or share new surveys and polls with residents. You can ask about hot topics and new policy issues as they arrive. I've even had customers hold holiday art contests using Polco's tools, and they've been very successful in reaching their community. So really, the options are nearly endless, and your dedicated Polco team is eager and excited to continue to work with you to engage with Annapolis residents. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Yes, please.
I think it was Alderwoman Pendle Charles was first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question. As I recall, 89% of residents favored single-family homes, but the theme and the finality of your last sentence was they want affordable housing. How do you juxtapose that in a limited 8 square mile city? How do you see that?
Thank you very much for the question. And I think it's a very valid one. I'll go ahead and go back to this particular slide, because I do think that it is important to bring up. Where were we?
Yeah, you had it.
Right.
80.
So, yeah, 80%. So what I would suggest is in digging deeper into these results, not only do you have access to the full spectrum of responses so that we can see we can weigh not only those who strongly or somewhat agree, but we can also weigh this against those who strongly or somewhat disagree. So having that full spectrum of responses, of course, will help as well. But also, luckily with your subscription to Polco, we can dig deeper into this. We can ask additional questions and in order to try to build out the context. So what we have here is that 80% say single family residential housing important, but we also show a very strong majority that are saying other types of housing, including affordable housing, is also important. So digging deeper into these results, asking more contextualized questions, I think will help us get to the bottom of these issues.
It's funny because my ward is exactly that. Many single family homes that are very affordable. So I don't know where this is coming from, but it lines up to my ward. I can only speak for mine at this point. So thank you.
Thank you, Council and Alderwoman. And I'm sorry, Chair. May I just wanted to follow up real quick.
Of course, yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to add in there. We also have in the full results, you can dig in through by comparison, so you can actually look at different wards. You can look at different demographic characteristics, and in order to see how the answer, the responses change depending on demographic. And these are all incredibly important things to consider, when making decisions moving forward. And I think that we'll start seeing these numbers changing when we start looking into individual wards or different demographics. So I think that's a very important point that you brought up. Thank you very much.
Ross, can I just
Thank
do a
you.
follow-up on that? Hi. So while we're looking at this slide, it's Alderwoman Tierney. Are these mutually exclusive? So is one person saying, how did you ask the question that you got this kind of result? Because it's not like you force rank them or anything. I guess that would be the next thing. But, I look at this and I see a person saying, yeah, I support single family most and affordable housing less. But I guess my question is, are they mutually exclusive, or is this a forced ranking of some kind? Or am I overthinking it, Vicki?
They're entirely, the ratings are entirely separate from each other. So it really is, the idea being that the city potentially could pursue any of those in parallel. The question is, how important is any one of them to you? There are a few patterns by ward for these questions, but not as many as you might think. Single-family residential housing, for example, there was a statistically significant difference between Ward 1 and Ward 2, and no other statistically significant differences at all in that, across any of the wards for that question. And the ratings are very much in line with each other. It's not like there's a huge difference. It just was enough that there was statistical significance to it. I think that, so don't think that that they are independent from each other. To get to, I think, Alderwoman Pindle-Charles' question, I think that question of follow-up, when we say single-family residential housing, that probably means multiple things to people. And I think that's one of the examples of, where, when you do follow-up, what does that really mean? Because that's not just a thing, that's potentially multiple things.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Thank
point.
you. Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I like the idea of follow-up. One of the benefits of this survey is that we can have it help us focus on things we need to do, as well as maybe pat ourselves on the back for things we're doing well. Just keep up the good work. But first of all, I want to thank the administration. I'm extremely pleased and proud that we've done this survey. I think that it's a very important tool. We're currently, as we all know, engaged in a strategic planning effort. And I think that gives us a lot of cues as to what we need to be including in that planning effort. So but thank you, City Manager, Assistant City Manager. I love it. And I have to admit, I haven't gotten to the back pages, but there's lots of grist for the mill in the study, so lots of work to do. I want to thank you for the presentation and ask you, I would like to send a copy of this out. Many of us have constituent emails, and I would like to get a copy, if that's possible, of your presentation to send it out to them. And for a number of reasons. One, I think that it was a very good summary and also somewhat provocative. But two, even though we had a reasonably good response rate, I think that it would be important to get more and more of our constituents to know that we've done this and also what it showed us. So is it possible to get in electronic form this summary that we could send out to our constituents?
I could absolutely coordinate that with Vicki. That would not be a problem at all, sir.
Great. Thank you very much for that. And I did want to follow up I think the single-family dwelling, 80%, which many of the people who own in the city live in single-family dwellings, but the desire for more affordable housing, 64%, is a planning question and one that we're really going to be grappling with in our soon-to-be turned over to us comprehensive plan. And I don't see them as mutually exclusive. I do think that we can provide more affordable housing. It just doesn't have to be in single-family residential communities. There's lots of other places. And in fact, I took the subway train into Washington, D.C. yesterday and was marveling at the incredible amount of housing that's going up along the Blue Line as we go from New Carrollton into D.C. I don't think there's a shortage of housing. I guess the real question is, how do we make sure there's enough affordable housing? And I think that's a planning issue. So again, it's delicious that the survey gives us that apparently contradictory and yet really, I think, complementary kind of response. So a lot of good things to work with here. I took up too much time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No, I'm sure he appreciates the feedback. Mr. City Manager.
Madam Chair, Michael Malinoff, City Manager. I just want to let you know that I did get the summary back from the strategic plan yesterday, and Tricia and I have scheduled a meeting with a potential facilitator on Monday. So we're keeping that moving.
I have a question. Oh, okay. Alderwoman O'Neill.
Thank you. Very quick question. Towards the end of the presentation, you suggested there were 200 and some respondents that said they wanted to continue feedback to the city. So that was an elective question? No.
Yes, it was an elective question. So at once you submit the survey, it gives you the option to supply an email address and a zip code, and that's all it asks for. And they can say no, they can move on. But if they do decide to register, that allows the city to continue to engage with them. You can send out notifications for any additional surveys or polls or anything like that. They're agreeing to be contacted to continue to engage on the Polko platform over these issues. And it was something that was optional. There was language there saying that it was optional.
Yeah, but it's registration on the Polko site. So part of what the city had purchased was access to that Engage platform for follow-up surveying, however much the city wants to do. And those folks essentially sort of opt into receiving our survey. So it makes it much easier to reach back out to them through that mechanism.
And it sounds like it might also be a great list for boards and commissions and task force. Just
Then we will lose those people.
thank you.
Hands are raised. Oh, we see them now. Sorry. Alderwoman Finlayson, I don't know if you were first. Sorry. And then Alderman Savage.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Vickers. I think I sponsored the legislation that proposed this survey, and it does not disappoint. So your question for us was, did it give us the information that we were looking for? And absolutely. One of the things I was particularly looking for was how well our departments respond to the community. And I think it was pretty clear, even though we didn't dig down really deep, we got a good snapshot of the fact that our departments are very responsive to the community's needs. And where they aren't, we know where we have work to be done. So I want to say thank you for that, for all of this. Is there a way to determine, and maybe you answered this question early on, from which ward the respondents come? Because there were some answers that were clearly delineated from specific areas of the city. So was that a demographic that's included in the responses?
So in the full report, in the online report, you are able to break down responses by various characteristics, including age, income, race. We do, in order to provide you with a statistically valid data. We do have to combine any categories that are under a certain threshold. So, for instance, under race, we have a limited number of non-white respondents compared to white respondents. So, rather than breaking the entire racial category up into each individual, we have to combine those into white versus non-white, which is very typical, unfortunately. And that's something that we will be able to continue to work on through additional survey efforts in order to reach out to those specific communities to build up representativeness. But in each, from the wards to the race to this to age to income, you'll be able to get all of those comparisons in the full online report. We do not we don't provide we provide all of the information in aggregate. So we'll be able to provide you by ward rather than kind of the other way around. Yes.
And Alderwoman Finlayson, in the memo that we had sent out with the results, that included a link, an online link, and those crosstabs are actually part of that. And if you would like to, when we're done here, I can show you how to access that so that you can see that ward breakdown.
Okay, I'd love to see that. I appreciate that. And that's more of what I was thinking about when I said demographics, particularly ward specific. Going back to the screen that we've talked about, which deals with the housing piece, I thought that headline, the title said planning. Keep going. This one, back one. Nope. The one that spoke to single family homes versus townhouses versus multi. I read new development in Annapolis. So I see this as part of our planning, that the community is interested in more single family homes, as well as senior housing, multifamily homes to a lesser degree. Affordable housing, I'm a little disappointed affordable housing falls in that lower category because affordable isn't low income housing. We're talking about, at least I am when I refer to that, I'm talking about affordable housing for teachers and our firefighters and our nurses and the like. So I don't know whether that was broken down to make it clear what type of, or for whom we're targeting as far as affordable housing is concerned. But that I see as a tool for us in our planning. So I don't know whether that was a real question or not, but the last question I have is, what other communities were we compared to? Early on, you said you compared us to other communities. Is that surrounding jurisdictions? Is that, you showed a map of the country. How far out are we compared to others? Because we're always looking for comparables. And, waterfront city, historical landmark, on and on. So I'd just be interested in knowing who else we're being compared to.
Absolutely, and you're being compared to everyone in our database across the nation. So we are able to, in future iterations, if we wanted to compare ourselves against only those communities that are in the greater DC area, or only those communities that are on the East Coast, or only communities with certain incomes, or certain communities, of certain sizes. There are many different ways that we can further break that down, but that's not something that we have that we have already done, but that's something that we can do even with the current data if we wanted to moving forward.
Well, thank you. And I hope we do continue to contract with you to continue to give us the direction that we need. So thank you very much.
Alderman Savage?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, a couple things. Regarding the housing that we've been talking a bit about, I do think that could use some expansion. If you go back to that one slide you had up of all the different options, it's interesting that for the most part, what's missing here is actually what we call the missing middle. So you don't see the duplexes, triplexes listed here. You only have townhouses are kind of the closest you might get, but it's still, and also just mixed use would be good to put in this as well. Because I think people may have different things in mind when they see single family residential housing. And, I think there can often be a stigma associated with affordable housing. And so one other way perhaps to word it would be, which I've seen other jurisdictions do, I don't know in the surveys, but generally they word it as below market rate housing. And so I suspect you might get a different response based on some different terminology that's used. On a similar, let me think here. What was the other thing? And similarly for transportation, I think that it'd be good to get that fleshed out more in the future as well. As far as how people, I'd like to know more about how people are getting to work, how they're getting to their after work destination, be it recreational opportunities or outdoor activities, or just getting to dining, getting downtown. But also, listing, I guess, what their preferences would be. So I'd be curious, if we can improve our transportation system, if it would be easier, quicker to, for example, bike or walk to a destination than it would be to drive, or cheaper, would they be more inclined to do that as opposed to just driving? And the last question just has to do with demographics. Do you feel like you got a good representation of the city as far as representing our demographic makeup?
So, absolutely. So when it comes to digging deeper, we have lots of tools there. We can flesh out, when we created the survey and we give them the options, they can only pick from the options we give them. So we can dig deeper. We can expand upon each of these in order to kind of get more specific. So we're all for that, and and the teams here very eager to help. And I'm sorry, Alderman, could you repeat the final question?
Let's see. Final question was, demographics. Do you feel like you got a good mix?
Yes,
Did
sir.
you meet your target?
Yes, sir. We met all of our targets. I mean, we always want to increase representativeness as much as we can. We always want to ensure that those who don't, typically or traditionally respond to surveys, we want them to respond, and that's why we go to great lengths in sending all the mailings out. We have QR codes, we do the links, and of course the staff in Annapolis themselves are out working, getting the word out as well, trying to reach the community where they are to ensure that representativeness. So I am very confident in the demographic representativeness of this survey and all the efforts that Annapolis staff put into it.
Okay, good. Thank you. And just one final question, I guess, regarding public safety. I haven't had a chance to go through the whole report, but was that expanded upon at all as far as, I guess, like what kind of things would make people feel safe? What kind of improvements they would be inclined to favor? We list here kind of new development in Annapolis and various options, but favorability options. But did we do something similar for public safety? For example, more officers, more cameras, whatever, drones, checkpoints, whatever, curfews, whatever it is. Did we do anything like that as far as listing options for people?
We did not in this survey iteration. We were, in terms of safety, questions revolved around services and kind of general feelings of safety, general perspective. But we can absolutely dig deeper in that. We in the future iterations, we can absolutely include those specific questions on this random sample survey effort. And I think that it would could possibly be a very wise thing to do, considering that safety was indicated as being a top priority.
All right, well, thank you so much, Mr. Vickers, for the excellent executive summary here. A lot easier than going through it's a very long report. Very good information. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Savage. Alderwoman Pendle Charles?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Vickers, you have 5 categories here that indicate a custom question. And I know at the beginning you had about 10 categories that you said are kind of general overall questions or items that you cover. Would this, I'm going to assume, but I'm not going to assume, would these be the same general, the 10 that you had first and these 5 be applicable to, say, some small town in Montana?
So absolutely. So the 10 facets, they're the same no matter what. Okay. We offer the NCS is a templatized survey, and we ask the same questions across the country in order to create those benchmarks. So absolutely.
And
I'm sorry,
same for these
sorry.
5 you have here as a custom questions?
The custom questions are worked on between with myself, our main contact Vicky, and and we worked through these survey questions, and each iteration can be different, or if you want to chart trends over time, we can continue to ask the same ones. But these are unique to the city of Annapolis, and it's unique to this survey effort.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when the city purchased the services of Polko, part of what we deliberately purchased was 1 page of custom questions that we could add to the survey. And so I had sent out a request to the department directors, you guys, asking about topic areas you would be interested in, and that's how we came up with what the custom questions should be. It was based on that feedback from the directors and from council.
So 80% of the custom questions is housing and 20% is parking?
That's
one question. That's one question.
Oh, yeah, that's one. I mean, this was one of the custom questions that had these multiple parts to it.
Okay.
But there was a whole page of custom questions. Yeah, and I can pull out what the final survey looked like, and we can look at what those are.
Okay.
Because there was at the end. Yeah.
All right. Mr. Vickers, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Great information and great breakdown.
Alderman Arnett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm still intrigued by the 138 volunteer respondents, both because it's so few. I would have thought we would have been inundated, and maybe that's a problem of getting out the availability for people to do that. But one of my worries was that we would get less satisfied constituents more likely to fill out the survey than satisfied, and that's why I was asking if we could compare. And I'm assuming that we can do some looking ourselves if we go to the link that you gave us. That's an intriguing thing. But I guess my question to city management is, I think there's a lot of meat here, and I hate for this to be, as it did go on my shelf of knowledge since I printed it out, but is there any sense of having like a small group of interested people, both council member and staff, that would want to sit down and noodle through this in more detail?
I would think that makes perfect sense, and I think it also makes sense in the context of the strategic plan and the upcoming budget that we have, because a couple of takeaways are affordable housing, mobility, public safety. I mean, these are things we've been talking about, and it kind of reinforces that we want to focus in that direction coming up, and certainly from the strategic plan. So I don't know and how you would exactly put that group together, because I really think that may be the council as a whole and us going forward in the budget deliberations.
There's different tastes. I mean, this happens to be what I did in part for my professional life, so I'm loving it. But it would seem like doing some of this deeper dive would be important to do before we get to the next strategic plan session, even if it's only some of us reporting, proselytizing, however you want to put it, what we found in the survey, or saying, gee, we ought to look at this more deeply. That paradox between single family and affordable housing, to me, is a really wonderful jumping off spot. And I can guarantee you, for some of us, when we do receive the comprehensive plan, there's going to be a real focus of things. So anyway, I'm sort of volunteering myself to be one of the members, but I think it would be a good thing to do fairly soon while the iron is hot, so to speak. But anyway, that's just my personal preference.
And may I say that I also think doing this every couple of years is important, because it kind of gives you an idea, a snapshot. Then the council and administration focuses in on certain goals through the budgetary process, and then we may be able to get an opportunity to then measure the results and see going forward. I too am very pleased. If you look at it, I think Alderwoman Finlayson mentioned it. It's nice to see how people are seeing the employees. To my mind, you're right, Alderman. We all fear that it's only going to be the ones who are negatives who are going to answer, because they may have an axe to grind. But as we see, there's a favorable opinion of our city, and there's a favorable opinion of our workforce. And I worked in one community where we did the same survey, and it was so down the middle. We couldn't really get a real flavor from it. But in this community, I don't think we're afraid of expressing opinions. And I think it was nice to see.
Yeah, I would encourage, I think that if we send out the presentation, the summary to our constituents, and as people see us starting to use this in the various council activities, it may give enough notoriety so that the next time we would have an even better response rate, although I think this was pretty much as good as you can get in most surveys. But I think getting another one out after we get this under our belt, and it may whet people's appetite to respond in the next one.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we as a staff, as a city, as residents, as a council, I think we deserve a round of applause. This is better than I would have imagined. You're right, Alderman Arnett. I thought there would be more angst. And I think maybe we see, I'm not disparaging anybody who comes before the council and testifies, but maybe to some degree we've been somewhat jaded. And I agree, the high marks for our staff, I think bodes well for everyone. I mean, the residents, the businesses, the visitors, the council, the staff, and everyone, I think it's great. I think looking at that, the more I'm thinking about it, looking at that 5 questions, I think that gives more credence to small area plans. because you can put some single-family homes on some parcels of property, and others may be more akin to senior housing or duplex or triplex or courtyard. So I think this really says that, I mean, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm hearing everybody conversating and Alderwoman Finlayson and Alderman Savage and all. I think that what I'm hearing, and I think gives credence to that. I'm delighted. I mean, we got work to do, no doubt about it. But I'm really pleased. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Alderwoman Finlayson, for suggesting and spearheading that resolution.
I have just a few questions. I think this wants, at least in myself, wanting more, because I think what it did bring up is I think you spoke to it, Alderman Arnett, are some of the relationships between the questions. And then you use the word paradox. I mean, you want to ask a question like, okay, the ease of public parking was low, but yet we're scoring high on walkability and walking. What does that mean? Does that mean that, you know what I mean? There's questions there that brings up. Technical question: Are you interchanging the word benchmark and average when you say that? You had a great slide that said, we had 19 items that were below average. Is that the benchmark that you speak to?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And then you asked at the end, what surprised us. What I did find surprising, and I don't know where now, I think it's in the report itself. Maybe I think it was in the report itself. There's something about transportation being low. I thought it was low. It was like 22% or something, and then it was similar to others. And oh wait, I think I found it. No, I didn't find it. We were low on public transportation, or what it looked like it was a low percentage, but yet it was similar to our benchmark, which I found surprising because I didn't think our public transportation, was comparable to others. I don't know if that's worth finding again, but that's just a comment, I guess. And to Alderwoman Finlayson's point on city services, the report itself, I'm a nerd as far as engineering. Yay, they love our garbage collection, and they, yes, they love our DPW services. Those all scored really high. I didn't know if we isolated that in the executive summary or not, or where that was covered, because that really stuck out to me in the report itself. That wow, they, we're good at snow removal
And I need to say recreation because the director certainly noticed that.
Yeah. And they're not, that's a thing with the executive summary. We probably, should send it out with the report, Ross, just because, yeah. No, thanks. It leaves me asking for more. I think it's great. It's going to be great during budget time. So are there any further questions, at least for now? No.
Just a big thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Where are you? Where are you right now? What location, Steve? Are you?
I'm actually coming to you live from Mobile, Alabama, down on the Gulf of Mexico. So native Southerner, native Alabamian.
Oh, nice. How's the weather?
It's cold, but it could be colder. It could be cold. I did graduate school in Milwaukee, so it could be colder.
Oh my gosh, yeah. All right. Well,
We got to -5 today.
with or without snow, Sheila. Just
With a foot of snow on the ground, of course.
of course.
Or coming tonight.
Oh my God.
And without wind chill. It's like -30 with wind chill.
Oh my God.
Steve, you know what I'm talking about if you've been here.
That's cold.
All right. Well, thank you so much. So I can ask now whether the city attorney could you please present the next item on the agenda?
The agenda is complete.
All right. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
Get better, Rob.
Yeah, get better. Yeah. All right, well, was that a hand? No, just waving, okay. All right, hearing nothing, the session is adjourned.